For any new film release, you want a trailer that really energizes you and makes you want to see the film as soon as possible. And for 28 years later, they certainly delivered on that. But is the film as good as that trailer? 28 years later is the third film in this post apocalyptic world. We had the first one 28 days later back in 2002 with Cillian Murphy. Then in 2007, it was 28 weeks later. And now, nearly 2 decades later, we get 28 years later. There is no 28 months later. They've skipped that, but this is potentially the start of a trilogy. It's definitely the start of two films because there's a 28 years later Bone Temple out in January, I think, next year, and they may do a trilogy depending on this film's success. I'm on the fence in terms of its box office right now, but I'll get onto that a bit later. But in terms of the quality of this movie, there's a lot to love here, but also there's quite a few flaws in it, which are very clear to see. So let's get into it. Director Danny Boyle returns after directing 28 days later. He didn't direct 28 weeks later, and it shows because they have definitely retconned quite a bit from that film. I enjoyed the opening sequence of that movie, but then it went a bit downhill with the kids, and yeah, the overall story just wasn't that gripping. And the film was like a one-time watch for me. But I know it has its fans, but I understand why he's decided to just base it off that first film. Alex Garland, who wrote that first film, also returns. He's recently directed movies such as Warfare and Civil War, and they're a good combination. And in the opening 30 minutes, you can see that there are ideas on the screen, but not all of them work. Like, for example, there's like this snapshot sort of bullet time thing going on with arrows, killing the zombies, and it just feels a bit clunky. It doesn't really give you that sort of give you what you want from that kill. It comes across so artistic that it doesn't really do anything other than make you think, hold on, it would look way cooler if you just did it normally. And we do see that, and it does look cooler. So it's like, why even bother? But at the same time, I'm like, at least they're trying something different. So I'm all up for them to throw new ideas out there. But when it comes to that first 30 minutes, we have Aaron Taylor Johnson, as you can see on the screen. He's the father in the film. He takes his son to go out hunting for the first time on the mainland because they're based on an island. And it's okay in terms of just seeing them bond, but it's not really until they return that the film really kicks into gear. And so that opening 30 minutes really is just sort of time for you to settle into the movie, and for the film to find its feet as well in terms of how it wants to show you the movie. It sort of settles down a bit, then it's not so glaring in terms of some of the ideas that they have for the movie. And then also once they do return, it's like, okay, the focus changes a bit, and that's important, and it goes off Aaron Taylor Johnson, and that's actually good. Like, Aaron Taylor Johnson, I've liked him in like secondary roles, like roles where supporting, I mean, more like in Nocturnal Animals and Bullet Train. But when he's more as a leading actor, I just find him very bland. And it's happened now quite a few times with Craven as well. It's like, and he's being linked to be Bond. I just worry if he does ever become Bond, but he has that charisma to really play the role. I just haven't really ever felt like he's sold me yet on that. With the first two films being set in London, it was refreshing to see this one take place in the north of England, with this family being based on Holy Island, which is a tidal island off the northeast coast of England. So there's lots of Geordie accents, which I'm used to. A lot of my family are from Newcastle, but it means maybe for some countries outside of the UK, they might struggle with the accent, understanding everything that's said. But with this new environment, it gives opportunities for some more creativity when it comes to like the chase scenes, for example. Like, we have a causeway, so you're not only focusing on the threat that's behind you, there's also the time limit of getting from point A to point B. So there's a lot more you have to sort of juggle here, and that really does add to the intensity of the action scenes. And in terms of the UK, the mainland, it is an exclusion zone, and it's the only place on Earth that is the case. Everywhere else around the world is fine, and that's very interesting as well because 28 Days Later had a lot of messaging in the film, like biggest threat is man itself, And you could look into this, with the UK being on its own, like a Brexit sort of thing. But at the same time, with that, it's like, um, it makes you think like, okay, so what happened then? Why was the UK just left? Who made those decisions? And also, we do find out in the film what other countries, how they've advanced, and like for example, like the technology that has advanced in the other countries, and that does create quite a humorous moment, seeing our characters react to the difference of technology. So yeah, I think that was a smart move to definitely, move it away from the capital. Like, with if it was in London again, it's like, how much more can you do in London? And that's the case. A lot of people when they look at the UK, they just think of London all the time, but there's lots more places to explore, and I'd be interested to see what they do with the next film. If they're going to move away a bit more or not. So we have the father and son bonding early in the film, but the main plot is really about the son trying to help his mother, who's ill, played by Jodie Comer, to find a doctor called Dr. Kelson, who's played by Ray Fiennes, who's on the mainland, and to see if he can heal her. From here is where the film really comes into its own, because we've followed this boy with his father, but now he's having to become a man, help his mother, and Jodie Comer just plays it so perfectly with this character. And I've seen her in a few things like Free Guy, for example. I've never seen Killing Eve, but she's a real talent, and someone who's got clearly a lot of range. So yeah, she's one of the best performances in the film, definitely. But her bond with her son is what gets you emotionally. It's what gets you tied to the film more. It makes you care about what's going to happen with these two characters. And if this Dr. Kelson character, who is played brilliantly by Ray Fiennes as well, he's not in the film a lot, but what's he all about? Why is he there on his own? What all these questions to be answered by the film. But out of the whole film, the standout actor is Alfie Williams, who plays Spike the son, because like he has to carry this film. He is the main character. Which I didn't realize going into it, but he is definitely the main character. He has to, have a lot on his shoulders when it comes to the physical acting, in terms of emotional scenes, even some comedy as well. But just to make it believable, because it's not always easy for a young actor to do that. Especially even in this franchise, like 28 Days Later, we have a girl in that who's awful. I mean, that if you watch that back again, that movie, the actress in that film is terrible. She's really awful. And I don't believe she's gone on to have an acting career, which isn't a surprise. But it's really poor line delivery in that movie, and it's so obvious. It kind of takes you out of the moment a bit sometimes. Whereas here, he completely committed to it, and it was so believable. So he deserves all the praise he gets. Of course, 28 Years Later is a horror film, so does it deliver in that regard? I'd say in moments it does, but it never really reaches that sort of overwhelming feel, like that claustrophobic feel we had in the original movie, because there's a lot more open spaces here with these big fields where zombies are sort of lurking around. But there are some like different sort of scenes here. Like we have quite a variety. Like we have slower zombies crawling on the floor, but like slowly making their way towards our characters. We have different variants as well, so I always enjoy that, like seeing different types of zombies. So it's not all just the same. Like we have these alpha ones, which all happen to be naked, and they are intimidating. Especially one of them, which has a rather interesting penis. I mean, that's intimidating in itself. And the people in front of me were definitely talking about it when it happened, because it's like he's chasing them at one point. I'm like, I'm trying to be locked into the action here, but that's swinging all over the place. And I was watching this film in 4DX as well, so I got the wind power and the penis, flinging around on screen. Like, whoa, So it was quite quite an experience. But having these alpha ones, and the characters calling them by that, it gives you a sense of, oh crap, this is legit. We got to make sure we run ASAP. No messing around. This ain't gonna, they're not gonna just walk around like the Walking Dead walkers or anything. And that's always one of the best things about these films, is that they are rapid speed zombies. So yeah, there are moments of threat and horror. There could be a bit more. There are some very gruesome deaths as well. But I think it will satisfy those of these films, like, in terms of the amount of horror in there. But I could have used a bit more in terms of that overwhelming feel, because I really did like that from that original film. Something that did surprise me in this film was the emotional kick and how powerful it ended up being because you can really feel the weight of the situation. Credit to the scene as well because the music was on point, the cinematography. Yeah, there are a few things where you do scratch your head at, like that's the case with the whole film really, where you're thinking, would that does that really make sense? Why are they doing that? Why is this person not here? For example, so there's a few things like that. Some conveniences, but for the positives the film has, you're happy to let a few of these things slide under the carpet just to keep enjoying yourself instead of just thinking of, well, hold on, that doesn't make sense. Sometimes you just have to, let some things go by the side. But when we get to this moment, it really did work well. And I think it shows from the people around me as well. So there's quite a few people crying. And yeah, I just didn't, I never really expected myself to have that kind of emotional response to this movie. I mentioned earlier how there are a few creative choices I didn't think really worked, but there are also some that did. And for example, we had these like red night vision scenes with some of these zombies, which just gives that feel of dread of what's to come for our characters. There was only just sort of snapped in there as like part of like a montage of different scenes. And I think that's something I really have come to enjoy from these movies is that there are so many zombie things out there now, but these do have a unique feel to them. They have a unique atmosphere to them and that off-key kind of feel, which really just sort of gravitates you towards it. And something else that I should mention is that Rudyard Kipling's Boots poem, which was so effective in the trailer, and it is also now in the film as well, because Danny Boyle and Alex Garland just really liked what it did for the trailer, so they had to put it in the film. And actually listening back to that poem, it is really eerie, so it matches the tone here perfectly. I'll play a bit of it here now.
Boom, 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 moving up and down again. There's no discharge in the war.
It's been a while since I've seen a film that is bookended in such a way like this movie. And what I mean by that is that the opening scene involves some kids watching Teletubbies, and then the drama unfolds, really getting you into what you're about to watch. That's okay. But then the end of the film, which I'm not going to spoil, but it's such a shift in tone from what we've seen before. It really took me aback, and I just felt like it was more stupid than anything else. And that's not the sort of flavor I want to be left with as I'm leaving this movie. But then, we'll have to wait for the next film, which is next year for Bone Temple. It's called. So, 28 years later, Bone Temple is this going to be a film that incorporates what we see at the end here in a way which is going to really make me believe it? That's the big issue. I'm trying to really skirt around this so I don't mention anything spoilery, but I'm now cautious going in instead of, if they didn't have this, I would have been more excited. It's like it's backfired big time. So yeah, with 28 years later, once it finds its flow, it is an entertaining ride, albeit with some story and creative decisions that do hold it back, and an ending that it was just peculiar. But with all that, it's still, like I said, an entertaining ride and a film that was enjoyable to see on the big screen. So I would recommend the film. The next one, 28 years later, Bone Temple, will release next year, directed by Near DaCosta, who did films such as Candyman recently and The Marvels, which, maybe don't say that too loudly, but yeah, we'll see how that one ends up. But will we get 3 films or just 2? Well, it really depends on the box office for this one. The budget for 28 years later, for the production budget was $60 million. So if it can get around 180 to 200, in that sort of bracket, then I'd assume that we will then get that third film, get the green light for that third film. In terms of this box office, do I think it will reach those numbers? But I think it's projected for its opening weekend. You probably know by now if you're watching this, but I think it's around 50 million, maybe even 60. So it might even hit its production budget, in the first weekend. How long it can last? Well, we got F1 coming out, and Superman, and some big summer blockbusters like Jurassic World as well. So can it really compete? That's the difficult one. So we'll see. I don't know. It's a bit more of a niche film. So if there's enough word of mouth and enough sort of desire, it's difficult to know from a franchise that's been away for 2 decades. So we'll find out. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on 28 years later in the comments below. If you enjoy these sort of videos, do subscribe for more and like the video to help it be spread around the algorithm. But yeah, until next time, thanks for watching. If you want to watch another video on screen or a couple of my recent reviews.